All right, folks, I tell you what, it's good to be here again today. We're continuing our lessons now on the book of Revelations. We're going to be in chapter 15 today. Chapter 15 is the shortest chapter in the book of Revelations. There's only 8 verses. So it won't be too awful long today, but there will be a couple little extra things I am going to put in there. But let's just get right on into it. Verse 1, and I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels having 7 last plagues, for in them is filled up the wrath of God. All right, what this first verse is doing is it is bringing us to the end of the Great Tribulation. The phrase, and I saw, assures us that John is still a spectator. He is witnessing the final rehearsal, if you will, the last act of man on earth. The phrase, another sign, connects this chapter to chapter 12, which they kind of correlate with one another. All right, the first sign, which is Israel. Remember we talked about the angels during that time. These angels that we will be talking about leading into the 7 bowls of wrath will be the same angels. These angels we will be with through chapter 19. This is when Christ comes, and we will dwell on that a little later on. I don't want to get into that too much right now. But all the way through the Old Testament gives us many accounts of our Christ. To me, it's exciting that Revelations falls in line with the Old Testament the way it does. I mean, it's really wonderful the way everything just kind of falls in there together. So let's go on to verse 2 right now. And I saw, as it were, a sea of glass mingled with fire. And them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God. A glass sea mingled with fire represents the frightful persecution by the beast during the Great Tribulation period. This is the time where no man could sell, trade, or buy unless they have the mark of the beast. So during this time, there was a lot of starvation, a lot of thirst for those without the mark. During this time, these people that were without the mark are the ones that God had sealed earlier in the book of Revelations. The Gentiles, as well as the 144,000. But there's no doubt that there will be some that will be martyred during this time. I don't know if it will, speculative. I'm thinking it's probably the ones that did not take, or did not only take the mark of the beast, but they didn't even turn to Christ. There is going to be some people, I believe, that's going to be there like that. Of course, like I said, it's speculative. I'm not real sure, but that's the way I feel about that. And so let's think about a couple more things while we're here. What about you and me in these days? Friend, we are not in the Great Tribulation, and never will be. But today we have troubles, don't we? Sometimes bitterness is just among a few other things that kind of gets into our hearts. We can create issues these things can create issues in our lives that may not be the best for us. But so let's with that, holding that in mind, let's go to Hebrews chapter 12 right quick. Let's look at verse 15. Let's see what it says. Look diligently, lest any man fail of the grace of God, lest any root of bitterness springing up trouble you, and thereby mean to be defiled. What that is that's a warning. That's a warning for us not to allow ourselves to get to this point. And human nature, sometimes we kind of fall into that. I know we do, but the interesting thing about this, when I was studying, let me grab my phone right quick. I found a poem that I thought was really interesting. And the commentary that I was looking at, this individual that I was reading from mentioned this poem, last couple of verses of it, last parts of it. So I debated on whether I was just going to do that part or if I was going to do it all. So I just decided that I was going to go ahead and just find it all. And so I'm going to go ahead and read that right now. Unanswered yet the prayers your lips have pleaded in agony of heart these many years. Does faith begin to fail? Is hope declining? And I thank you all in vain, those falling tears. Say not the Father has not heard your prayer. You shall have your desire sometime, somewhere. Unanswered yet, though when you first presented this one petition of the Father's throne, it seemed you could not wait the time of asking. So anxious was your heart to have it done. If years have passed since then, do not despair, for God will answer you sometime, somewhere. Unanswered yet, but ye are not unheeded. The promise of God forever stand. To him our days and years alike are equal. Have faith in God. It is your Lord's command. Hold on to Jacob's angel, and your prayer shall bring a blessing down sometime, somewhere. Unanswered yet, nay, do not say unanswered perhaps. Your part is not yet wholly done. The work began when first your prayer was uttered. And God will finish what he has begun. Keep incense burning in the shrine of prayer, and glory shall descend sometime, somewhere. Unanswered yet. Faith cannot be unanswered. Her feet are firmly planted on the rock. Amid the wildest storm she stands undoubted. No quails before the loudest thunder shock. She knows omnipotence has heard her prayer and cries, it shall be done sometime, somewhere. That was written by a lady that her father was a Methodist. He was a Methodist Episcopal pastor, and her name was Ophelia Goodwin Browning. She's also written several hymns, and this lady was born in 1856 and she died in 1946. So she was nearly 100 years old when she died, 90 years old. So I just thought that was interesting, and when I saw it in this, I figured, well, I'm just going to go ahead and say it, because, you know, it kind of ties everything that we're discussing together. So I'm going to go ahead and put this phone away, and we'll continue. It touched me when I read it. I'm talking about the poem now. My friend in this life, you and I are living down here. There's going to be a little bitterness sometimes. Among other things, you know, a lot of things could happen. This poem brings to light what we need to do. Pray. Have faith in God. He is in control. He will get us through it. But it is his time, but in his time. So keep praying. That's what I'm doing. What are you going to do? Just something a little extra I wanted to put in there. And always remember, and never forget this, the decisions that you make will greatly affect your Christian walk. So make sure that the decisions you make are within God's limits and within what He wants you to do. Just have faith. He's going to get us through it. He always will. Read verses 3 and 4 right quick. And they sing a song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of Lamb, saying, Great and marvelous are they. Works, Lord God Almighty, just and true are thy ways, thou King of saints. Who shall not fear thee, O Lord, and glorify thy name? For thou art holy, for all nations shall come and worship before thee. For thy judgments are made manifest. All right, if you want to learn the Song of Moses, you can find that in Exodus 15, 1 through 21. It's also in Deuteronomy 32, 1 through 43. Both songs speak of God's deliverance, salvation, and His faithfulness. First point I want to bring out in this, the Song of the Lamb, is the inscription of a praise to Christ as the Redeemer. If y'all remember when we was going over Revelation 5, verses 9 through 12, we kind of hit that point just a little bit. I also want to call at this point in time to your attention the fact that the book of Revelation is Christocentric. That is, Christ-centered. So as we're going through the book of Revelation, don't let the four horsemen carry you away. Don't let the blowing of the trumpets by the seven angels distract you. Nor allow these bowls of wrath to mess with you. Keep your eyes centered on Christ. He is God. King of Ages, the phrase King of Ages, has two other renderings. King of Saints and King of all the nations. Either of these indicates Christ will be the object of universal worship. And acknowledge there is going to be no place where He will not be worshipped. So with that being said, we got all this stuff that's going on in the book of Revelations with the beast and worshiping Satan and all those things that's going on. There's going to come a point in time where God's going to take back control. And when He does, no matter where you're at, you will not be able to worship none other than Him. So what I suggest in your life, I don't know where you're at right now with your life. I don't even know if you even go to church on a regular basis, those that may be listening. But what I do know is this. If you haven't already accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior, there will come a time, if you make it through if the great tribulation happens tomorrow, the rapture and the tribulation follows thereafter, how that happens, it starts tomorrow. You are going to have to go through some very troubling times. Then if you were to have, even those people that took the mark of the beast now, are going to have to fall and worship God. He is not going to be outdone by the devil. This is going to happen. So it is best for you to turn your heart over to Him and allow Him to work with you and through you. That's the important thing that we need to do. Part 3. Next phrase. Who shall not fear thee, Lord, and glorify thy name? Today, there's very little reverential fear of God. Even among believers. God is love. Let's don't forget that. But He is also light, which means He is holy. He is moving in our churches and dealing with Christians like I have never seen right now. It's happening in our church. There was numerous decisions this past year in our church that seemed to be, God just had a hold of it. Even though it was going through COVID, we had low numbers, God was still working. But as a Christian, we do not need to do as we please either. Believe me, God will have no problem sending in a little trouble if you do. God is to be feared. He is holy. Don't ever forget that. Just because you are a saved person does not give you the right to do whatever you please. Does not give you that right. All right, let's go on to point 4 right now. The nations shall come and worship before thee. Now, I discovered this a little bit prior. I talked about this a little bit earlier. But the day is coming when all nations will fall and worship God. I hate to say this, but the U.S. is not doing that. Our leaders have forgotten. They prefer to do as they please. They have forgotten one statement: one nation under God. This country was founded by our forefathers to be a nation that fears Him. But there is coming a day, U.S. or anybody else, they will have no other option but to fall and fear Him. Verses 5 and 6. And after that I looked, and behold, the temple of the tabernacle of the testimony in heaven was open, and the 7 angels came out of the temple, having the 7 plagues, clothing pure in white linen, having their breasts girded with golden girdles. At this point, the temple tabernacle has been opened. The word temple is referred to 15 times in the book of Revelations. So it's a phrase that cannot be ignored. It's also very important through the entire Bible. In the Old Testament, you can hear that phrase several times, talking about the temple. Things are changing these days, and we are forgetting the importance of worshiping God. 7 and 8. And one of the 4 beasts came unto the 7 angels, 7 golden vials full of the wrath of God, who liveth forever and ever. The temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God, from His power, and no man was able to enter the temple till the 7 plagues of the 7 angels were fulfilled. The 7 angels, 7 golden vials. Repeating the number 7 is important because it means perfection. It simply covers everything. We've heard it used several times during our studies. 7 churches, the 7 vials, the 7 bowls. We can go on. The 7 angels that blew the trumpets. This only names a few. The number 7 also signifies the end of the Great Tribulation and the beginning of new times. Now think about what I said. The tribulation is going to last for 7 years. That statement is important. The 7 years has ended. It's divided into 3 parts. It's 2 parts. First part is 3.5 years. Then the Great Tribulation, which is the one that Revelation covers greatly, is the last part of the tribulation period. So the number 7 has a humongous significance with God and with our beliefs. It's something that we need to understand that the importance of all these things. Anytime you hear the number 7 mentioned, it is extremely important in our faith, in the beliefs of our beliefs, and the beliefs of others. It's extremely important. All right. With that being done, that pretty much finishes chapter 15. But I want to just take a few moments. Now, we're going to be in chapter 16 next time. The angels are actually going to be pouring out the vials the next time. Each one of those vials, we're going to be breaking them down throughout that whole study. The angels pouring out the 7 bowls of wrath. Also, it includes the pause between the 6th and 7th bowl, which there is going to be a little pause. We'll kind of cover that just a little bit next time. Chapter 15 was the prelude to this, and is organically connected with it. So in other words, what I'm saying by that is 15 and 16 are connected together. It's worth repeating that the bowls of wrath talked about here contains the direct judgment of God upon the world. They knew not perceive from either man's misdoings or Satan's machinations, which that simply means scheming. Okay? Because as y'all know, all through the book of Revelations, talk about how Satan is scheming against God, how he is trying to put himself on that same pedestal, how he's trying to fool people. The beast is very prevalent in that. They are poured out during the reign of the beast. Even though they cover a very brief period, that is comparatively speaking, there's a definite similarity. Think about this, folks. Similarity between the judgment in this chapter and God's judgment upon Egypt through Moses. So like I said, the Old Testament, New Testament, Revelations, I mentioned Daniel numerous times, how they all kind of correlate and fit with one another. Let's remember, the beginning of the Bible and the end of the Bible were all written under the same kind of guidelines as whether it's New Testament or the Old Testament. These were inspired by God, written down by individuals to reveal God's plan, what we need to do, and all these things. So people that say that the Bible contradicts itself, honestly, folks, are full of malarkey. They don't know what they're talking about. So don't listen to them. They really don't know what they're talking about. But with that being said, remember we have chapter 16 next time. I want to thank Brother Sammy for doing the editing and all that he does for us. And also our pastor, Dusty Ray, for allowing me to sit here and do this for everybody. Thank you all. We'll see you next time. Thanks.